holistically, for once, my fault. Oh. Anyway, we're still fixing a couple things on my end, but we should be good to go. So why don't we go ahead and get this party started? Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Streamisho. I hope everybody's doing well. Sorry for that little delay. Some bits on my end needed some fixing, but that's okay. As a quick reminder, for today, we also have raffle set going on. The show will not be a very long one like last time. I'm not giving away 8 codes. It's a lot. So, today, we've just got what we've got, and what we've got is 15 minutes. Every 15 minutes, we're giving out a Robos Group code. Make sure to put an exclamation mark, raffle, and you'll go ahead and get everything started. You have a chance to be picked. Should be a good time. In the meantime, I should probably just make sure that the keyword is the correct one. It is. Very good. Great. That started off. Today we got some news, Awesomenauts news, specifically tournament news as to what the end of the Awesomenauts Arena League ended up becoming and what happened this past weekend. Additionally, we got some content to show off, amongst other things. Finally, you might be listening to some spooky music in the background for the past little while. I've just turned it off for right now because admittedly it's making it hard for me to concentrate. Hey! We're going to go ahead and have some news about that. Very specifically, I've created a new show, and that's half the reason why we had a little bit of a late start right now. In fact, that's the entire reason why we had a bit of a little late start right now. But I'll be able to show off the beginnings of that show when the time comes. You guys will know. And then after that, if we got some time after questions and everything else, we can go ahead and get started, maybe play a game of Awesomenauts, and then call it a show. So, that's it for today's docket. Why don't we go ahead and dishonesty Darth Dennis? You know what, Neil? Get out of here. Anyway, let's go ahead and start off with the Awesomenauts news. So, Awesomenauts news, the Awesomenauts League that I'm currently creating is still a little bit under development. That is some news for you right there. Turns out that I got a little bit busy with my other project that I was working on, and so as a result, didn't have the time to quite finalize all the tournament pod rankings and all that stuff that I was trying to make happen. However, I am still working on it, and that is a thing that will be announced in the very near future, and we'll probably have will have an official announcement on the next Streamisho. So by next week, there will be registration going out for the Slow Wolf whatever it is going to be called, Awesomenauts League of some kind. It could be just the SAL. It might be the SAL. Who knows? So, that one's happening. In addition, we have some Awesomenauts news from the tournament front. On the tournament front, the Awesomenauts Arena League being, largely managed by Jumbo and helped out by other folks in the community like Edster/Abs, has come to a conclusion after the end of a grueling finals kind of weekend. We do have our Disciples of Funk standing at the top of the heap. So I'd like to go ahead and offer a warm congratulations to them. They will need to get into contact with me about their lens flare cats as I try to figure out how that whole system works. And they can go ahead and ask me for a skin of their choosing. With a couple of exceptions, I will be able to grant it to them. They might already have it, but that's not the point. They can still ask me for it. That's how this all works. So, they will be gifted their awards and everything, and be sure to keep an eye out, because Jumbo says that there might be more coming down the line, and that when the Awesomenauts Arena League does kick in for a round 3, that there will be some more announcements on their Discord. So go ahead and check out the competitive Awesomenauts subsection in the Ronimo Discord, discord.gg/Ronimo, as there is a pinned announcement that leads you directly to that Discord over there. In addition, if anybody is currently in that organization, they can go ahead and post it in the chat. And I would be okay with that. I won't mod it to hell and back. I will not ban it. It'll be fine. I'll allow it. Just this once, though. So, if you guys are interested in playing some more tournament stuff, that's one way to do it. Okay, and that about sums it up for news, as far as, brand new stuff goes all right now. Oh, wait, except for there was a leaderboard reset last week. I'd like to go ahead and report that so far, people seem to be happy about it. People seem to like the leaderboard reset, and it's kind of enlivened a lot of people's gaming inoughts and everything else. As it stands right now, we're currently looking at feedback. We are looking at how people feel about the whole process. And if you have any feedback for us, make sure to talk to me, Philip at Ronimo-games.com. That's PHILLIP at RonimoGames.com. In order to send me an email there, I'll be able to parse the information there. You can also talk on the Discord. You can also talk to me on Twitter. You can also talk to me on the YouTube comments, whatever. I'll be reading all of it. That's literally been my job, to the point where I famously gave my leg like a serious case of lack of blood earlier this morning from the amount of sitting and reading that I've been doing. So, I'll read all of it. Make sure to send it, so that way we can actually parse it, use it, and potentially either do more or less resets based off of your experiences, folks. I'm very curious to see what it is, and curious to see how you folks feel about it. Now, they better ask for the X skin, no bias or anything. You know what, Pixel? That skin is pretty dope. I do like the Steel Seraph. It's definitely a thing. Will I participate in turning? The answer is absolutely not. I will not be participating. What I will be doing is managing it, and probably casting the odd game that pops up if I can. That would be awesome. If the Streamisho or like Ronimo's channel can be used to cast a couple of games, I'd be 100% down for that. So, that's something that'll happen. Okay, so next up, there is one more thing that needs to happen. Very specifically, I've been working on a project in the back, in like the shadows for the last little bit, and although I've been unable to get it all sorted out so that way I could show you a visual today, because I kind of put together a visual, and honestly, it's not up to Ronimo standards. Go figure, I'm not a Ronnie artist. So as a result, all the assets that I put together just weren't very good. However, the audio was fine. And so, as a result, what I've managed to put together for you is the very first Blightcast episode. Now, the Blightcast itself is meant to be a podcast. It's meant to be listened to. However, we will have a visual element to it, and it will go up on YouTube as soon as we can manage to make that happen. As it stands right now, what we're going to be showing off is the audio portion. So, I would invite you all to sit back, grab like a sandwich, a coffee, something along those lines, and we're going to go ahead and listen to the very first Blightcast episode. Now, when this is happening, we're going to just cut to a very pretty looking GIF, because as it stands right now, like I said, my assets aren't very good, and after this, we'll have our question period. You guys go ahead and ask questions, and we can go ahead and talk about it afterwards. I'm looking for feedback, because I literally have made this myself, as of right now. We were interviewing Heis Ahrmans, the art director at Ronimo Games, and I'm very excited to let you guys hear what goes on with this. So, hopefully everything works out audio-wise. It should, from what I've tested. Let's go ahead and let it begin. Enjoy the show, folks. Welcome to the Blightcast, the Ronimo Games official Blightbound podcast. My name is Slow Wolf. Today we will be speaking with Heis, the art director at Ronimo Games. Heis, hello.
Hello.
How are you doing?
I'm doing fine.
So, okay.
I'm doing well.
Oh, that's excellent. That's good to hear, especially considering how busy it must be right now. So
Yeah, it's really hectic.
I don't doubt it. So I'm glad that you had the time to take out of your busy schedule to come and talk to me today. I do have a couple of questions for you, and I'm really glad that you said yes to the interview. So let's get started, so that way we don't take up too much of your time. First off, for those of you who do, for those people that don't know who you are and what you do at Ronimo, who are you and what do you do at Ronimo?
Well, I'm Gijs Hermans. I'm one of the co-founders of Ronimo, and I'm also the art director at Ronimo. So my main task is to make sure that all the art assets are created with the same style in mind, and I lead the art team, basically.
That sounds like that would be a lot of work, considering. But then,
yeah, it used to be. It used to be more of a creating job, in which I did a lot of character design, etc. myself. But with Blightbound, it's become more of a management task because we expanded the amount of artists we have. So
right.
I do less of the art directly, and I do more of the keeping consistency and meetings and etc.
Makes sense. And it sounds like that would be especially a lot of work for a new title like this, but we'll get to that in a second. How did you end up starting to work at Ronimo? As I understand it, you're one of the founding members, or?
Yeah, I'm one of the founding members. So basically, the story of Ronimo is we did a project at HQ, which was the Blob. THQ bought the rights of that game, and we thought, hey, wouldn't it be cool if we as students stick together and create our own company? So we created our own company, and in the beginning we worked on a game called Snowball Earth.
Yeah, I remember seeing the prototype for that.
What did you say?
I remember seeing like a prototype video for that or something like that on the internet. Yeah, that was pretty cool.
You can look it up. Back at the day, we used to do 3D graphics, but we changed it up for Sword of Soldiers to 2D.
Yep.
Also because we created our own engine, and 2D engine was easier, but also it fit well with the artist we had at the time, and that's how we grew into the 2D kind of games. So
yeah,
that's how I started. And I used to be just a 2D artist, so doing characters and backgrounds, etc.
And now, like, you've done 3D back then on the Blob, but now we're at this point where we're working with like a 2.5D environment, and we'll definitely get to that in a second. But let's go ahead and keep that where it needs to be right now, because I don't want to take up too much of your time. But no, that's excellent to hear, and the rest of it is largely on the internet at this point. The games are all available in some way, shape, or form. And your influence is palpable. So let's talk about Awesomenauts and Swords and Soldiers for a minute. Those are probably the two games that your studio is best known for, and they both have like a particular kind of vibe that's similar between the two. You end up having this, cartoonish kind of vibe, I guess. But how would you describe the art style of both those games and the philosophy that went into designing them the way that they look?
I think one of our core philosophies always is we try to aim for an animated look. So we want to have a clear division between background and characters, just like the old animation movies, the Disney movies, etc., in which there was always this distinction between the characters and the backgrounds, and I think in Sword of Soldiers 2 we came really close to that feeling, I think. But we're also restricted on other ends, as in we don't have that many animation frames as a regular animation, but I think our goal always is to create something fun and stylistic, because we like stylistic stuff. We don't like pure realism. Yeah, we like it in other games, but we don't like to create it ourselves, and it doesn't really fit our team.
Okay.
So we always want to create something stylistic differently, and most of the founders were kids of the 80s and 90s, so
Which
we grew
explains
up
a
in
lot
that.
of Awesomenauts.
Yeah, it's very clear on Awesomenauts, and it's also, in a way, it's also in Blightbound, but we'll get back to that later on, I guess.
Yep.
And it's also clear in Sword of Soldiers, but Sword of Soldiers is more Asterix and Obelix. Not sure if you guys know that.
Oh, I know about
It's a
Asterix and Obelisk, yeah.
Yeah,
They're excellent.
it's a comic. Yeah, we really like that kind of angle, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
And those are legitimately good comic books, actually. I grew up with those. My mom
really
collects
are.
them. There's a whole stack of them. I think like almost the entire series on my left somewhere. So I know them pretty well.
What's also cool is that they're pretty historically accurate. Although
Oh.
it's really it's
Definitely.
dumb and stuff, but it also teaches you something about the Romans and the Galliers, or whatever they
The
call
Gauls
in
and
English.
stuff, yeah.
Yeah. So,
But and then for Awesomenauts, you ended up that you said that the Ronimo studio is made up a lot of from a lot of kids from the 80s and stuff is one thing, but there is a lot of references, pop culture references from the 80s in Awesomenauts, and more recent stuff as well, but from everything from the Soviet from the Soviet monkey in Yuri to all this other stuff going on, like in the item descriptions and everything, it's everywhere. What would you say was, I guess, the most important influence as far as Awesomenauts' like style and like inspiration for its art?
Earthworm Jim and Bucky O'Hare, I would say, and
Nice.
and also those are concept artists from now, but they're called Creature Box,
Mm-hmm.
and they are the concept artists from Ratchet and Clank. They're
wow.
also a huge inspiration in the beginning for us. And a weird one, but back in the day when we started Awesomenauts, we also watched a lot of Naruto, and Froggy G is basically we came up with Froggy G based on Naruto because he has a lot of frogs. And later on, the turtles are also a good inspiration. But I think, yeah,
That's
I think Earthworm
pretty
Jim
amazing.
is pretty close because it's also in space, and Bucky O'Hare as well.
Right on. And that really feeds into that 80s Saturday morning cartoon vibe that you guys kind of pitched as well at the time, and continue to do so for the rest of Awesomenauts' development. What would you say was your favorite thing to make for that game?
My favorite thing to make, I wasn't even that involved, but one of my favorite things is, we added that in free to play, is the opening sequence in which the jets, you see all the drop pods, and you have the logo disappear, and you have the sound. And it feels really anime and 80s, 90s cartoonish for me, and with the music as well. So I really like what it added. Although it's a really small thing in a way.
Yeah, but it is really cool, and everybody sees it and pays attention to it because it shows people what their matchup is and who they're up against and stuff in a way that's, again, really stylish, to borrow a word that you've been using a lot.
Yeah, and it creates the 80s, 90s vibe. It creates the animation vibe, which I like. So I think that's one of the coolest things. And yeah, I like a lot of the characters, but yeah, so do a lot of people, I think. And I think everyone has his own personal favorite, so.
For sure. I mean, it's hard for me to pick any one favorite, but I definitely get what you're saying. Now, all that said, we're currently working on Blightbound as a studio, and although you say that there's definitely some links between Awesomenauts, Swords and Soldiers, and then the current art style of Blightbound, including that definitely not realistic, but that that kind of stylish look, it's definitely different than Ronimo's previous work in a variety of different ways. When you describe the art philosophy of Awesomenauts, that was one thing. How would you describe the art philosophy behind maintaining Blightbound's look and aesthetic?
Well, we started out with, we want to do something completely different. Basically, that was the main goal when we started working on a new project. And a lot of us came from Sword Souls 2, and a lot of us came from Awesomenauts, so we did the cartoony games, and we wanted to create something dark. But as I said before, we didn't want to go realistic, so we wanted to go stylistically. And in the beginning, the game was way more as Awesomenauts, although
really
stylistically, yeah, it was way more cartoony. The barbarians were way more cartoony, and we started out as a spoof of Conan.
Alternate universe.
Yeah, there was also an animation. It was about a Conan-like figure who went to a bar and beheaded everyone. Yeah, people probably know what it is, but I forgot the name. But it was an animation that was also a parody on that kind of vibe, on the 80s, 90s Arnold Schwarzenegger barbarian.
Yeah.
And that's what we started out with. You can still see the remnants of this in Crom, which is one of the characters. We reshaped him a little bit, but in the beginning it was like one-on-one Arnold Schwarzenegger and Conan, basically, kinda.
Yeah, I can still see that influence there. Looking at the character myself, so for sure.
And we changed that a little bit more and added, because in the beginning we didn't have any lore of itself. We thought, oh, we just want to make like a spoof thing, more of like a parody. And eventually, we when everything came together a little bit more, we saw that the graphics, we were a little bit torn between the cartooniness and what we wanted to achieve, because we also wanted to have a game that looked different, and that's when we started to change things up. So in the beginning the game was also cel shaded.
Right. Wait, really?
Yeah, we changed the art style, in which made the characters more painted, and the backgrounds also more 3D-ish, combined with 2D assets. And we restyled the characters, so we reproportioned every character. And at that moment in time, our inspiration became more in the Magnolia corner, so Hellboy and a couple of other artists.
Yeah, I can definitely see that now.
More stylistic look, and now it's still stylized, but it's a little bit more serious, because we thought we wanted to appeal more to a crowd who plays also games like Diablo, etc. And we thought this look fitted that kind of audience a little bit more than the original parody we had.
Right.
And looking back on it, I think it was a good idea. And that's when we also introduced the Lightsabers, because in the beginning the characters didn't have a light weapon.
Right.
But the game was very how do you say, hard to distinguish between good guys and bad guys, and it was very busy.
Right.
And what we did then was we gave each character his own light weapon that at least focus was on the character, and
you could tell roughly where your weapon was, and
Yeah, yeah, and we introduced these subtle colors of each of the classes have their own color schemes.
Mm-hmm.
So we created some more distinction, and eventually it ended up being what it is now. And like I said in the beginning, we started out with more of a spoof kind of idea, but now we eventually created a lore and our own world instead of just making a parody on the worlds that were already there. And I think that took off nicely, but it was a lot of work as well.
So
But,
to kind of recap, then the core focus behind a lot of Blightbound's art direction then is to create a more a darker and more intense version of Ronimo's previous style to take it away from the kind of bright, vibrant colors and look of stuff like Awesomenauts and that kind of inspiration, and bringing it closer in line to more of those darker toned graphic novels, like you mentioned Hellboy earlier. And
I think that's a good summary.
And to be clear, like, this is definitely still like Ronimo's kind of style, though. When I look at the stills, the pictures, and at the characters when I'm playtesting the game, it is very different from a game that has a similar kind of mood. So, like, for instance, Darkest Dungeon has a similar mood, but the style and like the way that they go about achieving the mood compared to what Blightbound is currently doing is very different. How would you kind of like reconcile, like, how does Ronimo make that mood work for them the way that they need it to be, so that way Ronimo's style still fits? Because
I think
that's a big jump for a lot of people to kind of follow, I guess.
I think that has a lot to do with the people working on it. I think, for instance, Valve does a lot of the levels, and it's always his flavor and his taste in it. So, in a way, he represents a part of the Ronimo style, just as I do, and just as the other people who work at Ronimo. And because there's not a huge, we still have basically the same people we used to have for Awesomenauts and for Sword and Soldiers, so that makes it easy to keep like a consistent style and vibe, I would say.
Yeah, for sure.
So it has a lot to do with the people working on the project, that it feels like Ronimo in a way, and yeah, I think that's the main thing.
Yeah, and I can definitely see that too. There's some parts of it where I'm like, hey, look, I recognize how that art style works with Xenia's splash art, and then how that translated to some of the rogues, for instance, and like how their general shape and form looks like, because the classes are kind of split amongst like a different along a particular silhouette, and I can see that there. And I know that you already kind of answered this already, but when you were talking about the light weapons and such, but the art style that you chose like partway through development and that you changed to accommodate certain needs, has that, like, by adding on the light weapons and all that stuff, has that had the effect that you wanted for the game's mechanics? And is there anything else that you can think of from the art side of the game that has had an effect on the mechanics and gameplay of Blightbound so far? That you can tell me anyway. Keep in mind, like, both of us have to kind of keep like a list of things. It's like, okay, I can talk about this, can't talk about that.
I think what we did with light weapons was a really good decision, because it just gave more focus. Even when you play the game now, it's still at moments can be very busy, because you're playing with 3 players at once, fighting a lot of enemies at once, so it's gonna be hectic. But we tried everything we could to at least make this feel better and make sure that the player knows where he is. And the second question was,
like whether or not that will have like if there's anything else that this will kind of affect, that the art will affect in the game. So, like, I think you kind of have described, though, that you are like doing the best you can as an art studio to kind of like keep this going in a way that the player can understand where they are and what they're doing. And then you've also like there's also other subtler things like panels on the ground lighting up, or if they're activatable or stuff. So that you already answered that question, so don't worry about it. Okay. Last couple of questions, and then I promise I'll let you go. So,
no problem.
Do you think that Blightbound's art style will change in the future, or is it going to stay like very much the same? And the reason I ask this is because you can tell with Ronimo's work that over time, Ronimo grew a lot as a developer, and you could see the drastic change between the earlier characters and the later characters, both in terms of the splash art and then the sprites, to the point where Clunk and Lone Star got remade almost entirely. Is that something that you think will happen with Blightbound as well, or do you think that the art style is mature enough that it should be able to stay right where it is without needing to change too much?
I think it's bound to happen if the game is supported as long as Awesomenauts. So, because if the game is a success and people want more of it, you're probably gonna expand the company, and you're gonna have more artists, and because
and then when you add the artists, right, you add more to the Ronimo style stew. Like you mentioned before, every single artist has their own
you add
flavor,
more,
right?
But I think time is one of the biggest factors, because when we created Awesomenauts, and when we created Clunk, there's a gap of 7 years or something.
Yeah.
With the revamp Clunk, and we learned a lot, and we wanted to show what we learned, and we don't want to hold back. What we could have done was hold back when we created every new character, hold back what we can do now. But we didn't want to, because we wanted to make every character better and cooler and more unique and animate better and have better VFX. And eventually that will lead up to having some characters feel outdated. And if that happens with Blightbound as well, I only see this as a big success, because that means that we are allowed to support it for a long time, and that the game is a success. So, in my opinion, it would be great, and I probably think a lot of stuff will be
improved, like over time.
Improved over time, and for instance, dungeons. I think we learned so much creating these dungeons that these lessons will be taken for the next dungeons, so to make it easier. So yeah, it's a learning experience.
Yeah, and if anything, it just goes to show that with the previous games that Ronimo's worked on, that the maturity of the studio has definitely improved over time and has become what it is now. Blightbound kind of represents like all of that kind of coming together, and it looks the part too. I've got to say, it looks gorgeous so far. So
thanks.
Yeah, keep at it. Like you guys are doing great work. All right. Well, I'm kind of out of questions. If there's anything else you want to add, I mean, like, be my guest. But I think that this is good enough for our very first Blightcast.
Okay. Yeah, that's great. Yeah. If there are people who have specific questions, then they can ask you, and you can ask me later on, and I'll answer them.
Sounds like a plan.
Yeah, it was fun to do this, and maybe later on we could also share some images of
I would
what we have.
Very much like that, because at the moment all people are seeing right now pop up on the screen are stills from the trailer, which is the best I'll be able to really do. So hopefully that's enough. But yeah, thank you very much, Heist.
Yeah, we really like to share what we also did with Awesomenauts. I think Joost shared a lot of the pre-production work on his blog, and later on in the project, I think it would be really cool to share this as well, because it's too bad a lot of pre-production work gets lost in hard disks of people working on it and never gets shown to other people.
I agree.
So, yeah.
Well, I'm sure that we'll have you back on then to show that off once the game gets more fully released, so we can actually see it.
Yeah.
Because I'll be here for a little while, and this won't be the last episode.
Yeah, great. Cool.
Cool. Well, thanks again for coming by. Thanks for sitting here and being interrogated, I guess. And we hope to see you again soon, Heis.
Yeah. Thanks, Phil.
Thank you, everybody, so much for watching and or listening to this very first episode of the Blightcast. If you wanted to go ahead and find this on other places where podcasts and videos are available, we will be on YouTube, and as soon as possible, we will be up on Spotify and the iTunes store as well, and other places where podcasts are available. Please make sure to subscribe, and if you are listening to this on a podcasting service, to leave a rating, so that way this is more easily found by other people who might be interested in this kind of inside baseball look at how Ronimo's been developing their latest game, and in the future, in terms of just Blightbound in general. At least that's the idea. For now, please do let us know what you think of the podcast, if you'd like to, at my email, which is phillip, philip@ronimo-games.com. And if you can, also leave a comment anywhere where you can find us. You can also find us on our Discord, discord.gg/Ronimo, and you can go ahead and speak to us there as well, ask us questions, and be a part of the community. For now, that's it from us. Thanks again, and we'll see you folks next time in the Blightcast. So at this point, I'm assuming that the podcast is finished. Oh, well, that was Blightcast episode 1 in audio format. Hopefully it kind of came across well as an audio thing. And it's at this point where I'd like to go ahead and ask a big favor of all of you. I'm going to be hawkishly looking at this chat. If you guys have any questions, comments, or queries, now would be a good time to let me know for about the next 5 to 10 minutes. Will you be able to show some gameplay from Blightbound? Eventually, I'm hoping within the next couple of weeks, I'll be able to actually show you something far more substantial. Speaking of which, the next Blightcast will be in about 2 weeks. So maybe I should probably take a look at somebody who, interview somebody who has a hand in the mechanics and who's had a chance to kind of decide how all that works. That might be interesting, because I know in the next couple of weeks there will be something a little bit more substantial that comes out. Can you dab? No. But more actually, yes. Okay, moving forward. It's still rolling and recording? I mean, the Blightcast will be. But you get the idea. This is all recorded last week sometime. So, can we choose the classes of the heroes, or are they going to have a default role? So, as far as what has been shown in the trailer and in other materials already so far, there are 3 distinct kinds of heroes. Each hero fits within one of those genres, and those kinds, genres, classes, are going to have a defining kind of role, but each one of those characters will do it in a somewhat different way. Different enough that it will actually engender different builds, different items, that kind of stuff. So, there is some work about that. Can I ask questions about Awesomenauts? Yeah, absolutely. One of the things on my plate here that I'm thinking about starting up is just a general Ronicast as well, to talk about all things like Awesomenauts and its development and stuff like that. But what's more likely to happen is I want to develop a retrospective series on stuff like Awesomenauts and Swords and Soldiers. Like 6-part episodes that might be a bit longer form, but they delve a little bit deeper into the development of them and how they were received and different changes and stuff like that. But that's a me project, not a Ronimo project, so I'd have to do that on my spare time, you see. Unsubbed immediately? Why? Is that because of the dab? Can you pet a dog? There aren't any dogs that I can think of off the top of my head. I'll put in a request. Pictures today. It's my fault that there weren't pictures right now. I'm sorry about that. It's literally because I am a terrible artist when it comes to Photoshop, or at least I don't create assets to the same level that Ronimo needs them to be at. And as a result, because it took a little while to get this thing together and to slap it together, and because of the time difference, no one really saw it until today. And it was today late enough that I couldn't render another video in time. So, That's on me that there weren't any visuals and stuff, but when it does get uploaded to YouTube, there are visuals that I did queue up. You can see closer ups of the stuff that's in the trailer. I do end up showing like the differences between the two different clunks. I go over and I briefly show the mini trailer, reveal trailer for Snowball Earth, which you can look up yourself, by the way. It's on the Ronimo channel right now if you want to go ahead and see their one of their very first games, prototype kind of things. It's cute. It's very cute. You can definitely tell though that the style has changed and grown, but you get the idea. Voltar Ix for president. Voltar's smarter but insane. Ix might be too idealistic and is probably hung up on his own things. And it would probably turn into a populist person, and I'm not sure if that would be very good. I think I'd stick with Voltar, because at least he'd be very decisive. And he probably knows the rules, at least in some way, shape, or form. Shield, support, damage, something along those lines, but because of the way that everybody kind of works out, you'll end up having some of the people that do the tanky genre, the tanky kind of class, that do a lot of damage as well, and that's specifically their niche, is to kind of do enough damage that they don't have to tank as much, if that makes any sense. So there are going to be different changes and stuff along those lines. And if you'd like, I can go ahead and see if maybe I can ask one of the mechanics developers to come in and talk about the classes for the next Blightcast. I think that would be very interesting. You kind of talk in depth about each of the classes, the philosophies behind them, that kind of thing. What's your favorite fighter? In what game? In what kind? Huh? Pardon? Is Blightbound going to have any roguelite elements or just a fully crafted dungeon-styled game? It is going to be a fully crafted dungeon-styled game. In fact, one of the people, as mentioned in the Blightcast, Ralph, specifically hand creates a lot of the dungeons. And there are a lot of people working on different things, like, extra rooms or puzzles and stuff. But, they are handcrafted dungeons. How much aiming is involved in the game? I mean, you'll see, but, like, for some of the skills and stuff, it's not like, from my personal experience so far, it's not been like ridiculously pin precise aim, but like you do need to aim. There's a lot of positioning involved mostly. He'd be assassinated week 1. RP Varela, you do realize he can literally turn into impenetrable crystal dust, right? Like, and heal forever? He can't be assassinated. It's not possible. He just kind of goes wow, and then it's fine. Exactly. CX Salty is correct. Because the way of how people want to play every role has a damage version, because not many people want to be pure supports or tanks. Well, there's that option. And surprisingly, based off of what internal testing has shown, a lot of people are really happy with playing the support class of all things. So, like, interesting. I love handcrafted dungeons. They feel so much better than a roguelite. I'd agree. Is there any PvP? No. As it stands right now, the game is meant to be a pure PvE experience. It is meant to be the players versus the environment. It is a dungeon hack and slash crawler kind of deal. And as Heist mentioned, it's meant to appeal to the same folks as Diablo. Now, mind you, Diablo did not have handcrafted dungeons the same way that, say, Gauntlet might have. This is a lot closer to Gauntlet. Diablo had like randomly generated levels and stuff, but did have very specific things that would show up a lot of the time, if not all the time, and like specific room layouts and stuff that you'd find. This is from top to bottom. This is the dungeon. So it's like Minecraft Dungeons. I have not played Minecraft Dungeons. I have not paid attention to it, largely because I find that if I'm going to go ahead and look at something like that, I need it to look different. Minecraft works really well as it is for completely different reasons. Off the topic of what I'm trying to talk about, so we'll move on. Rank for dungeon completion time or dungeon level record. As of right now, those are mechanics that I can't speak about or speak to, so I'm going to have to skip the question. But, here, I'd like to actually shift the direction of the conversation in Twitch chat briefly. Is there anything that is there anybody that you folks would like to take, like an interview? Like, who would you like to have next on the Blightcast? Who would you like to have next to be interviewed? Because that, to me, is a pretty big question. The idea behind the Blightcast is that I do it every 2 weeks. I keep it to the same length that about an ideal YouTube video sits at, about 15 to 25 minutes. But who would you like next on the Blightcast? Is that format long enough, or does it need to be longer? According to you folks, like, what do you guys think about that? And finally, as far as format goes, is it like okay as far as pacing goes right now? Like, did we keep the discussion rolling at a good clip, or was it too slow? Did it need to be a little bit faster? So, Neil, come on. You want to talk about mechanics? Okay. I like to interview the metrics. We'll just go into. Hey, raffle side! Raffle side! Okay, let's see who's got it. We've got False Channel. Who's got the win? Congratulations. You're going to go ahead and get your raffles out at the end of the stream. I'll go ahead and take the time to go ahead and slot out all the things. So there's going to be one more raffle at the end of the next raffle. I know what's going to happen. We're going to have to end the Streamisho. But that does mean that we're going a little bit over time. That's largely because of me taking too much time to get started. So I'll take that one on the chin. Moving on. So let's see. The Blatoy Blightcast, not happening. What about AI and difficulty? Will the enemies just do more damage and have more HP? Because, okay, so I see what you're getting at. Is the difficulty going to just increase the damage and all that stuff? Right now, those mechanics are being developed. They are being looked at and all that stuff. We want to have difficulty be more interesting. Of course we do. So, and that's something that we are aware of. I do know that much as a team that the developers are currently working at that level right now. So yeah, that's a thing. Keep that, like, we're working on that, but that's the most I can say. How long has the stream been going? You can exclamation mark uptime, and I believe that it just shows you. Let me just double check that one for you. It does not. What it does say, however, is if you look underneath the thing, it should tell you the amount of time that we've been up. If I'm looking on the right side here, does it actually show me in mod mode? It does not. Look, we've been running at this for about 50 or so minutes, maybe a little bit shorter than that. So not too long. Please interview Deadlift. I would love to hear what he has to say about the new Ronimo IP. Come on. Better not just be bigger AoE the harder it gets. Either I want more interesting combat, interesting gimmicks. Yeah. We want more interesting combat gimmicks too. As I mentioned before, right now, as far as my official feelings have been concerned with a bunch of the different fights, they do end up feeling quite hectic, like a WoW raid might at a higher level in some cases. But then there's also those levels where it feels like a more traditional hack and slash where you can just kind of mash things. But as things become more difficult, you do need to be aware of the mechanics, you do need to be very aware of your positioning, and you do need to kind of like do well. You do need to be able to actually play the game if you decide to opt in for more difficult levels and stuff like that. So that works, that the mechanics are deep enough that at a lighter level they can be just played for fun, and that at a more difficult level you do have to be aware of the mechanics, and that they can be played around. So I think that so far is a pretty good balance. Random aside, during this time of video calls, this looks like you're sitting in front of a desktop, but usually people are utterly unable to look into the camera. This is a rare eye contact video. Well, I mean, I do have it such that I've got like the camera set up in such a way that I can look at it, look at you, and yeah, hopefully that works out. Hopefully. But yeah, so people are saying right now that you guys want to see an interview with somebody that talks about the mechanics, or you want to talk about the level design kind of aspect of things. Cool. Some people have said specifically Yoast would be interesting to have on there. KO Megalol for Blightcast. Neil, gosh darn it. Is there some gameplay of it by chance? Right now, Frail, I can only say that there's some of it in the trailer. The stuff that's in the trailer is earlier than what we currently have right now. I do know that in the next couple of weeks that there will be some actual stuff to show. So give it a couple of weeks. Speaking of which, in 2 weeks' time, there'll be another Blightcast episode. So, if you liked this, if you enjoyed this, we're going to have another episode up in a couple of weeks. Yeah. And one more time, though, I gotta ask, is the format length okay? Like, is like 15 to 25 minutes too short or too long? Because I remember seeing one person say that this was a bit short. How does everyone else kind of feel about it? I get this is a co-op game, but can be played single player. At the moment, there's no way to do that for right now, but we'll see how it goes. Currently, it's still in development, so if early access determines that that's a thing that a lot of people want, obviously we'll look into it, but not at the moment. A lot of stuff is on the table, be lousy. So if you're talking about Steam Workshop, you know what? Like, it depends. But there's a lot of stuff that's on the table, and as time goes on, we'll obviously be able to refine our what is on the table and what we actually definitely want. We know what we want for sure. We want the game to be the right mood, the right aesthetic for what we want, so that's why it's got the art style that it does. We want it to have a certain kind of gameplay and a gameplay feel to it, and we want it to have a certain a certain genre. Like, we definitely want it to be this cooperative action hack and slash kind of thing, and that's not going to change. We know that for a fact. So yeah, it has user crafted dungeons. That'd be really cool. That would be very cool. Any information on monetization? It's going to be plenty once type of thing, or will there be in-game pay options? So that's a very good question. As it stands right now, I can't say much. I can say that there will be an early access pay once get in sort of deal happening sometime around midsummer. At the moment, I've heard toss arounds about a July date, but I can't really be more specific than that because dates change. And if I say anything specific, y'all are going to get real mad. So avoiding the anger issue, I'm going to say midsummer. Okay. Past that, I don't know. We don't, like, that's not been really actively discussed a whole ton with me, anyway. And so as a result, all I can say is that. There's that. There's a lot of stuff on the table. Obviously, people, I also know that there's going to be no loot boxes. So, you know, ring the bell of we're awesome because we're doing a thing that's largely expected. We're doing the decent thing. Yes, ring the celebration bell. Like, there's no loot boxes. That much I know. But past that, I can't really say anything else. Well, it'd be TF2 cosmetics for pre-ordering. Look, as cool as that was for Awesomenauts back in the day, TF2 is not a hugely a game that's going to have a lot of tie-ins right now. Valve's gotten a lot bigger. I don't know, man. I don't think so. Can I import my own furry OC as a playable character? Boy, Kala, come on. Will there be Steam trading cards for me to throw money? Grind up and do smart trades for? There will probably be Steam trading cards. We've got a lot of art assets. There's a lot of beautiful art in the game. I don't see why we wouldn't want to, like, market that as much as possible and have Steam trading cards attached to, like, achievements and stuff like that. So, artifact cosmetics then. Oh my god, Pixel, get out of here. No. Smedrick, there will be no loot boxes. If there start to be loot boxes, I will quit my job. That is the level of promise I'm willing to make here. The instant that this game starts making loot boxes, I have a conscience, I will quit. So, no loot boxes. Or I will leave. If there are any developers in chat right now, it's an official, it's a thing. Keep that in mind if you Ronimo. But no, like, Fabian has said very specifically, or has said very specifically in, like, a news press announcement that there will be no loot boxes. So, when is Blightbound 2 going to be released? Oh my god, Steve, get out of here. Will it be deck building / card building mechanics? There are not. No, there will be no deck building or card building mechanics. This is far close. Like, there's none of that. We're not about that life right here with this game, okay? We are far more about the life of equipping and smashing things. So, none of that. Blightbound 5 went, Reaper, get out! I'll add them myself. I have the power. No, Schmendrick, no! Don't you dare. As someone, I like my job, please don't make me. As someone who doesn't like dungeon crawlers, what should get me hyped for this? So, as usual, Ronimo tends to be really good about making these things accessible and making them really easy to pick up on. That is still very much the case. That is something that they are working towards and making, like, a fundamental part of every game that they've made, is making it a thing that people could pick up and play for fun very easily, very quickly. But the thing that makes it interesting is that it is not just a button masher. It does end up being, you know, it does have those moments where you can chill and relax, but it has a lot deeper mechanics than that. And that's something that I think a lot of people do not respect as much as they should. No, that's the wrong word. That they don't, when people think of Ronimo, they don't necessarily immediately go, oh, deep mechanics sometimes. But, like, Awesomenauts has survived 8 years on deep mechanics. Swords and Soldiers 2, campaign-wise, good, like, excellent mechanics. So far, Blightbound, it fits the bill. Like, it looks simple on the surface, but deep down when you get to it, it actually ends up being a lot more complex and a lot more nuanced. And this fits that bill, but on a far more mature scale. Like Heist was saying, the game is, like, the art studio's matured, and as like their whole studio really has matured, and I can tell you that much. The whole game is a lot more developed than previous games by the studio, so it is interesting to see like how that's going to come along and how you folks respond to that when you guys get your hands on the game, if you decide to buy into the early access. I was replaying Diablo 2 and found unique gloves. Can Blightbound compete with that level of POWER power? Yes. I'll say yes. Can we confirm Nib's epic candy search? No. Can you play it solo, or is it online and have to play with 2 other players? So you do have to play with 2 other players at the moment, as of the current dev build. That is the current goal, is to keep it multiplayer, because we like the idea of designing combat encounters around having 3 different players with 3 different roles, and each player having a different job to do. The trick really will be whether or not you want to play online, which will be relatively easy to do and easy to make happen, or to play couch co-op, which is easily done. Like, hook up a couple controllers and done. So far, you can just swap between controller and keyboard as you will. And yeah, like it's like that's the goal of the game, is to have 3 people play, but it's up to you how those 3 people play, how you play with them. You can play with 1 person with a controller next to you, and then have a 3rd person join in online. Like, it's not going to be horribly restrictive, but it does require 3 people. But we'll see. Again, it's one of those things that we're going to early access, and if there's enough demand for it, then like make it known. I'll communicate it to the devs, and then I'll come back to you as to whether or not like that's even a thing. Like, again, the idea behind the early access is not to create the perfect game, you know, like to create the perfect game. That's not possible. What it is there to do is to help refine the experience that Ronimo is trying to make. And it really is meant to be like you guys will see. It's meant to be this hack and slash where everybody has to work together, and where it is that kind of nuanced, deeper play as it gets more difficult, but you know, at earlier levels and stuff, it ends up just being a fun romp with your friends sort of deal in a horrible dark place. Speaking of the horrible dark place, there's also going to be lots of lore, so keep your eyes peeled for that. I do want to make an interview with the person who's writing a lot of the story behind all of this, so that'll be cool, and that'll be fun when the time comes. How the matchmaking work? I moved to EU, and matchmaking for Awesomenauts has always been crap for me here. So, as far as the matchmaking goes, it's not the same as like a matchmaking game with PvP, right? By the way, I love how this conversation went, hey, tell me about the Blightcast and help me make it better. And everyone's just like, no! We're not talking about this! Ah! So, so let's just get back to this question instead, because this is what people want to talk about. It's my job. Let's talk. So, as it stands right now, the matchmaking is not like a PvP game where you have to match people based off of certain criteria in terms of like skill level, whether or not they're gonna have a good game, in terms of like immediate like is it gonna be a tense close fight, because that's what we're aiming for. Like literally, you can just pair any 3 people together and you've got a game. Done. Right. So, as a result, the matchmaking should be just a lot easier in the baseline, because you just need to match with 2 other people. Now, it is going to be peer-to-peer, as it stands right now. That's how it's being built. Because 1, servers are expensive. Same thing that happened with Awesomenauts. And 2, if the game, you know, goes on and on and on and on and on, peer-to-peer is a lot easier to maintain. It ends up being a lot easier to just work with, because, you know, as if a player base gets smaller or larger or whatever, peer-to-peer will always work. So that's why that exists the way that it does. Just make an FAQ for that question and many, many more. I am in the process of compiling a list, Crescent. But thank you for reminding me to get back to it, because that's one of those projects that's been sitting on a sticky note with a couple of little things underneath it, and I just kind of look at it and go... eventually we'll get to it, I promise. Is Babelzorg the final boss? Yeah, sure, why not? So is it going to be infinite levels that'll be generated, or are there going to be a set amount of levels you need to get through? So there are handcrafted dungeons, but the dungeons themselves can increase in difficulty as you get stronger and stronger and stronger, so, like, that's a thing. There are also mechanics kept in place so that way people are usually switching between favorite characters and stuff. So it will engender you trying to get used to and playing a variety of different characters and all that stuff. It'll keep the game fresh for longer, is the idea. But we'll see. Again, you guys will get your hands on it eventually. Is there an end game, or just have a final boss area, also New Game Plus? On the table. I love the idea of a New Game Plus myself. And if that discussion ever pops up, I'd be like, Yes, but there are ways to keep the game fresh that are currently being mechanically developed right now, and like those need to be solidified before anything else. I'll get back to you on other ideas. Matchmaking with a 6-player PvP game is inherently different and a lot easier than matchmaking for a 3-player PvE game. What? More difficult is what I meant to say. Yeah, I kind of had a moment where I was like, how? How on earth is it easier to match 6 people together for PvP than it is 3 people for PvE? Like, what? Anyway, I'm glad that we kind of got that fixed. Okay. So talent tree, something similar to Diablo 3 or Path of Exile. There is character progression, but that's all I can really say about that. Are levels adapted to your level of power or set difficulty for each level? It is like... I can't talk about that. You'll see eventually. You'll see eventually. Will I have pets? I'll pass it on. Are there literally any other things that I can talk about for the Blightcast specifically? Like, are there any other things that... All right, and that's going to be our last raffle. Okay, cool. I'll answer like a couple more questions. But, cancel and roll it! Well done, Los Potato Dolce. Potatoes Dolce. Soft potato. Nice one. I like that name. Soft potato. Answering by smashing the camera. Lamau. Get out of here. And now the rigs come out. Excellent. So, look, we're kind of out of time. If you guys have any more questions about the Blightcast, about Blightbound or anything, please do let me know. Will your beard ever grow into the lengths it used to be? I mean, it's getting along there, Ike. It's getting there. Like, it's getting grossly long. It does need to be more professional at this point, because Ronimo's been kind of like looking at me sideways recently, going like, and I'm like, ah! I'm kidding. They're not. I just imagine that they are because I catastrophize everything, but that's not the point. That's not why we're here. We're not talking about me. We're talking about you. We're talking about the game. So, I'd love to hear more about the music production progress in a future Blightcast. I would too, actually. It'd be very cool to get my hands on some of the people from Sonic Picnic to do an interview. Because they are the ones that are behind the game. So, your beard is just an extension of your hairs. It's not wrong. We'll be using relay servers, which should fix at least some connection issues. Okay, that's good to know. I did not know that. Thank you, Schmendrick, for clearing that one up. Will there be any exclusive stuff for Blightcast as there was for Not? Now there's an interesting idea. It depends on how well the first few episodes go. If there's a lot of a demand for it and people start really getting into it, yeah, we could probably set up like a subscription newsletter prize or something like that, which would be pretty neat. But as it stands right now, nope. Every other Wednesday we'll be going ahead and at least doing a quick show of the Blightcast if it's got any particular news in it, and if not, then we'll be giving like, hey, the Blightcast is out today, go to this place to subscribe to it, with like maybe a little snippet to show you guys on that. But for this episode, I really wanted to feature like one whole episode so you guys got an idea of it, and then in 2 weeks from now when there's a new Blightcast, it'll probably just be like a chunk of it to tease it, and then you guys can go ahead to the other places to go ahead and get your lovely ear holes filled with the beautiful dulcet tones of the Ronimo developer voices. We want to hear more about the mechanics or gameplay. Cool. Alright, that I can do. So I'll go ahead and look to see if I can't find somebody to talk about. Maybe the heroes might be an idea. That's an idea. And how they work and everything. Hopefully by then we can talk a little bit more about it. I couldn't in this episode, obviously. The only thing that I could really talk about was the art, because all we saw was the trailer. And that way we could talk about the history, and there were a lot of questions about what's with the big change. So yeah. And finally, does the Awesomenauts take the place in the same universe as Wizard 101? No, Awesomenauts is its own thing. Awesomenauts is its own little universe for itself. And that's it. Thank you everybody so much for watching. I hope you folks have enjoyed your streamy show. I've enjoyed putting it together for you folks here this week. I've enjoyed just having fun, really. It's been a blast. And I'm really excited to see that there's a lot of positive, there's a lot of enthusiasm for this new show. So I'm very, that's good to hear. I'll see if I can't get somebody set up for the next one. And by LC, I mean I will get somebody set up for the next one, because I kind of set this thing as a project for me on a bi-weekly basis. And there will be announcements on all the social media channels for more access to this, as well as, you know, getting announcements for different Awesomenauts tournaments that might be popping up. My Awesomenauts League, once it's ready and running, the Ronimo Streamisho as they come along, and additional Q&A shows as they come along, and reveals. If you want to go ahead and talk to me, you need to find me on Twitter. You can find me on my email, my company email, phillip@ronimo-games.com. That's phillip@ronimogames.com. You can go ahead and ask me questions there. Additionally, you can go ahead and find me at the Discord, discord.gg/ronimo. I'll be there all the time. And because it's like that's what I'm literally paid to do. It's I can't believe this is my job. So, that's it for the show, really. You guys know where to find me. You guys know where to find more announcements. And if you don't, again, check out those places I just mentioned. We also have our YouTube, which has been uploading these. So if you kind of missed a good chunk of this episode, hey, check out the YouTube. It'll be there. It'll be there. We'll have this episode there. And then there will also be a unabridged, unedited, episode of the Blightcast over on the YouTube eventually as well, as soon as my art fingers are, you know, helped. Because I need the help badly. The audio versions hopefully will be up by Friday. If not, they will be up next week on Spotify, iTunes, and all the other places where you can find yourself a podcast. Thank you everybody so much for watching. This has been Slow Wolf, your Ronimo Streamisho hostimo. Most hostimo even. And I'll see you folks next week, Wednesday, at the very latest. Cheers, and stay healthy. Wash your hands. Have a good week. Welcome to the Blightcast, the Ronimo Games official Blightbound podcast. My name is Slow Wolf. Today we will be speaking with Heis, the art director at Ronimo Games. Heis, hello.
Hello.
How are you doing?
I'm doing fine.
So, okay.
I'm doing well.
Oh, that's excellent. That's good to hear, especially considering how busy it must be right now. So
yeah, it's really hectic.
I don't doubt it. So I'm glad that you had the time to take out of your busy schedule to come and talk.